Hi, I'm Ingo from Roast Rebels, but my person is completely irrelevant in this video. The hero of this video is Wayne Burrows. Wayne is a really experienced coffee professional. He's a barista that has won barista championships, he's a roaster, and since a couple of years he's in the core team of Kaffelogic, and there is probably no question around on the Kaffelogic that he is not able to answer, as you will see in this video. We made a talk, a webinar, where about 12 users of the Kaffelogic machine were invited, and they were asking him a lot of questions, great questions when it comes to the machine. This video is intended for people that already own the Kaffelogic Nano roaster. We really go deep into the details of the machine. If you just want to get an overview on the machine, you find some videos on my channel where I give a bit more broader overview. In this video, we really go deep into the software, into the details of the machine. And if this is of interest for you, you can look forward to a great about an hour of video. There was a part of the video that we had to cut out, and later in the video you will learn why. But now I would say let's start and directly go into the webinar.
Wayne, question. First of all, great product. I like it very, very much. I use it. I have a pleasure to use it. Question about the roast level. The roast level is a new parameter in the coffee roasting area. And for me, if you could give us some more details about it, because why I'm asking, if I choose a roast level, let's say 2.5, okay? And I have a profile of 10 minutes roasting with a development time, and I switch to another profile, let's say of 7 minutes, with another development time, with another roar in the development zone. How can you manage? I try to understand it, the mathematics. In order, so the shorter profile, in order to get the same roast level, because it makes a difference if in the development time the medium roar it's 3 or it's 5 over the whole development time. So how do you manage this?
Yeah. I think the only and the easiest way for me to show you, there's two parts to roast levels, and I just want to start off by clarifying why the roast levels were used by Kaffelogic, and then how we all of us have taken those roast levels and have started to manipulate those roast levels without us even knowing about them. Okay, now the roast levels effectively haven't changed. Our profiles have changed. Now, what I mean by that is very, very simply, what those roast levels are end temperature points. So each roast level and the points in between those roast levels, so the points in between 1 and the points in between 2, represent an end roast temperature. Okay, now I'm going to show you that. I'm going to show you that, Vlad, so it makes sense to you. Okay. So when Kaffelogic started and we had the Kaffelogic Classic profile, those roast levels were end points on the profile. Okay, and those end points on the profile were temperature based. Okay, what we did was we started to create these profiles, and what those profiles started to do is they had their own end points. So like you rightfully say, if you stop a roast at 13%, you take a profile, a 7-minute profile, you stop it at 13%, but the roast level on the screen may show 5, for example, and 5 may be very dark, but it's not dark. It's actually very light, actually too light even for some espresso. Okay, so how do we recalibrate them? Okay, now I use the term recalibrate because that's exactly what we have to do. Is we have to learn, first of all, what they are, and then we have to learn how to recalibrate them. Now, Ingo, do you mind just allowing me to share my screen? And Vlad, I'll just show you very quick what I mean by that. It'll make a lot of sense to you once you see it in Kaffelogic Studio. So you can all see Kaffelogic Studio right now.
Yeah.
Okay, so in Kaffelogic Studio, right at the bottom of the screen, we obviously have our recommended end levels, as you can see. And you can see the 228 degrees, 28.2 degrees there. Okay. Now, as I go up with the levels, and I'm just going up from here from 3 to 3.1, what I've done is I've increased the level by 0.4 of a degree. And then I've gone 3.2, I've increased by another 0.4 of a degree. And then I've gone 3.3, I've increased by another 0.4 degree. Now that difference in degree in which you increase can be calculated and can be added in as you want it to be added in. Okay, now that recommended end level, that end level is not what you see on your screen. You just see a level on your screen of your Kaffelogic. But that level 3.3 on this profile here, which is your Kaffelogic Classic profile, that level 3.3 has a recommended end temperature of 228 degrees. Now, where do these temperatures sit? If we go to our profile settings, and if we go all the way down to our profile settings, here are the roast levels that those points, those recommended end level temperatures actually sit on. Now, what I mean behind that is the 205 degrees here is 0.0. So that's 0.1 effectively. Okay, so that's level 0.1. This is level 1, 215.0 degrees. That's level 1. This is level 2. And this is level 3, 227 degrees. Okay, right. Now, the difference in between the 222 degrees, 227 degrees, that difference equals the change, if that makes sense. So the smaller that difference is, 1 degree difference, will be 0.1 degree increase. 2 degrees difference, 0.2 degrees increase, and so it will go on. Okay, now you, Vlad, you can change any of these points to suit any finished temperature that you want or end temperature that you want. Okay, and this is when you create profiles or anyone creates a profile. This is the last bit of the profile that you should be recalibrating.
You are in a very advanced mode, Wayne, yeah?
Let me take you through that.
Yeah, because
no, it's all good in studio. All that you do is you go to options.
Yeah, but you are in a mode which I'm not using.
Well, you can change that mode. You can go different options.
I know.
Difficult and then engineer. So what that will allow you effectively here is let's say, for example, Vlad, you've roasted 7 minutes and you've roasted 15% develop. Oh, let's say you've roasted, I don't know what your espresso is, your medium espresso on the coffee that you're roasting. Let's say it's 16% development, and 16% development on a 6-minute roast or 7 minutes roast ends at 218 degrees Celsius. You can go to level 0, 1, 2, 3. You can go to level 3 here. Okay, and you can make that 218 degrees. Yeah. That means that on your profile, when you go level 3, it will be 218 degrees, which will be equivalent to 18%, as long as your first crack is at exactly the same point when you created the profile. And that's another problem with levels. The other problem with levels is when we create a profile, do we calibrate the levels? Number one, what are we calibrating the levels to? If we're calibrating them to only temperature, end temperature of the roast, that's fantastic. But if we're calibrating levels to development percentage or development time, then that all works from first crack. That means that if you're setting your level 3 to be a medium roast, but your coffee's cracking at 204, and my coffee here in New Zealand cracks at 215 or 212, then my levels are going to be out, if that makes sense. Okay,
Exactly.
So
this is one. It was one question of mine. Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But
So,
Wayne, for understanding, if I have this profile, I'm happy with what I roasted with the level 3, and I
yes.
say, okay, I change the profile. I change the upper part of the curve, so the roar
Yes.
to be more aggressive, bigger.
Yes.
Bigger
Yep.
after
Yep.
the first crack.
Yep. Yep.
And I roast again with a level 3, same level. Will be the two roasts somehow match each other, will be the same, because it cannot be exactly the same. I have other parameters.
They won't be exactly the same, because now you've moved your in temperature out slightly. So more aggressive profile, you've moved it in slightly, or you've moved it out slightly with a softer profile.
Yeah.
So that in temperature will change. So what level 3 was 228 degrees. Now level 3 is suddenly 225 degrees, for example, or 224 degrees, for example. So you would have to then go back into there and then recalibrate that level by a degree up or a degree down, or however you want to save that profile.
So if I set a certain level, the end of the roast, the automatic cut of the roast, the drop, the cooling phase will start when I reach the end temperature corresponding to that roasting level.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yes. And that corresponding level, that corresponding temperature is here at the bottom of your screen, in your profile screen in Kaffelogic Studio.
Got it.
Yeah. 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 So to answer your question, if you're used to ending your roast 5 or 6 or 7 roasts on that profile with different coffees, if you're used to ending it around about 220, let's say 220, 222, the easiest way to be would just to take that 222 and then just go into your levels and make that 222 your new level 3 if you wanted to.
Got it.
If that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I have just Wayne in the chat 2 more questions when it comes to roast levels, so we can stick maybe a bit to the roast levels.
Sure.
One is Patrice is asking about the roast level for a cupping standard. If you say he's using the machine for cupping standards, what roast level, and probably also which profile he might use in order to have a consistent roast. And then Damir, maybe you can take it afterwards. He's a bit on the other side, he's on the espresso side, so he's probably doing darker roasts.
Okay.
So his question is, should he stick with the altitude profile, or then at what point shall he go into the super dark profile?
Okay, perfect. So it's quite interesting with cupping profiles. I'll start with the cupping profile first. So from a cupping profile perspective, and I know on your core profiles there is a cupping profile, and I'm actually going to compare that for you now against just a standard cupping filter profile that we use now. I'll just bring that up for you quick. So I think where I'm trying to go with this is just to understand what we've done from a cupping perspective, and how cupping profiles, why you would use a cupping profile, a specific cupping profile for cupping, versus using different profiles for cupping different coffee. So there's two methods within roasting of cupping coffee. The one is a consistent method, because you're defining cupping by looking for, first and foremost, defects within your coffee, and then giving yourself a bit of a roadmap to go, how do I like to drink my coffee? I like to drink it as filter. I like to drink it as espresso. As filter, I like to drink my coffee with, I like to drink my coffee with 93, 90, maybe 95, 96 degree temperature. But when I cup my coffee, I want to be cupping my coffee at 92 degrees temperature, for example. I want to look for defects first, and then I want to look for where I can push my coffee left and right. In order to do that effectively and consistently, roasters recommend using one specific profile. So using one specific profile, it doesn't matter if that profile is the best profile for your coffee. Doesn't matter if the profile is the worst profile for your coffee. It's a consistent profile to use for cupping. And that consistent profile with a 10%, 11% development time, probably about 40 to 45 seconds post first crack. That's what you want to be looking at for cupping generally. I'm obviously generalizing because there's various methods. I'm just using one method. Okay. So we've done two things. In the core profile kit, I've given you a cupping profile. And the reason why I've given you a cupping profile is for that consistency. Because I don't know who you are. I don't know what coffee you're cupping. And I definitely don't want you to use an espresso profile for a cupping coffee. If you're going to cup coffee, try and use a consistent profile. So I've got two profiles that I have up here. One is a profile that is cracking at 207. And the other one is the standard core cupping profile. And I've compared them against each other to show you that they're different, but they're not extremely different from each other. You can clearly see that they're not espresso profiles. Okay. Now I would use either one of these profiles as a cupping profile. I would cup at 10% development. I would get my result from that. And then I would assess if I could then use that coffee. If it's a coffee I don't know, could I use that coffee because I really enjoy espresso or I really enjoy filter, and what do I need to do from the profile? Ingo, that's one of your questions that you had that you posed to me was, where do we start? From what point do we actually start a profile from? The cupping profile like this, any profile, but the cupping profile in particular, is a starting point profile. It's a profile you could say, I need to bring a bit more brightness to the coffee. So I'm going to take a specific phase of the coffee and I'm going to pitch it up, make it a little bit more intense. I need to get a bit more momentum in my coffee because it's super dense and it's super fresh. Maybe I need to put in a point here in the beginning of my roast phase and I need to pitch that up and put a little bit more momentum into the roast. The cupping profiles are good profiles to start manipulating, to start playing with. Okay. What I've done over time and what I recommend that you do is start with the profile and then move yourself on that profile to a point where you can get more flavor from it. That flavor will start to fall away. You will start to go more into your espresso style or your deep filter style of coffee. You're looking at around about that 13, 14% development. Pull your profile back and you will find that optimal for cupping. The question that I have for cupping is, why are you cupping? That's a valid question. If you drink filter coffees, why are you just not doing more filter styled roast? Why are you cupping your coffee? What's the purpose for cupping? I think sometimes cupping is a little bit misused within the structure that we want to use it for. If you're roasting coffee cupping wise to drink it, it's maybe not the right way to go about it. Maybe roast it in more of an espresso or more of a filter style to drink it. Yeah. I hope that answered the question from a cupping perspective.
So his question was, because he's a coffee roaster and he needs to roast samples for his roaster.
Got you. No worries. So if Patrice is a coffee roaster, fantastic. So he's obviously looking for either a consistent profile to roast to, which I would recommend. If he hasn't tried it, I would recommend trying the cupping profile. If he has tried it and he's finding he's getting no luck out of it, or maybe he wants to develop it a little bit more, I would then look at developing that cupping profile. This 207 cupping profile that I use, I developed from the main cupping profile. And that was just because I found that I wanted to get a little bit more brightness. And I started actually cupping coffees that were a little bit older. That's all I had access to. So I started to bring the profile down a little bit more through this midsection. And I landed on this 207 profile, which is what I pretty much use consistently through my cupping at the moment.
And which roast level are you using for the cupping?
This loaded as default. This loaded as a level 2, 212 degrees. So I'm just going to move this pane over here. And if you can look onto the right-hand side, you might have to move the pane with the rest of the people in there. But I'm sitting at a 207 temperature, 6 minutes 15, and I'm sitting at a 10% development. Now, what I would like to just chat to Vlad about that a little bit, just to reiterate. Okay, this 200, this level 2. This 212 degrees was recalibrated into those same settings. Okay, so if you're roasting on the standard Kaffelogic profile, the Kaffelogic Classic profile, or an espresso profile, 212 degrees wouldn't be 2. 212 degrees would be 1.3 or 1.4, somewhere around there. So this has been recalibrated to give me a consistent 10%. What I mean by that is I now know, Ingo, I can load this. My coffee's at roast at 207 degrees. I can load this profile and it will automatically stop at that 10% development, or it will automatically stop at that 212 degrees end temperature. That's how I've calibrated that for you.
Yeah. I have a side question about this. What about if I change the beans? I'm using exactly this profile. I change the beans, and the first crack will be not at 207, it will be at 212.
Perfect.
It will stop at, it will stop where?
Yeah. And look, I'll show you where it will stop exactly. So I'm going to change that temperature, that first crack, to 212. And you'll see where it will stop now. It'll give me a very, very, sorry, let's do this quick. 206. Sorry, I've got 100. Oh, that's why. So have a look at 212. So 212 here as a percentage will show you 0, because it'll show you, Vlad, you're on mute, but it will show you 0 because of this here.
Yeah, because the temperature. The roast always stops when the temperature is reached corresponding to the roast level used.
Yes, absolutely.
And if it happens that the first crack is 1 degree before, we will just wait this couple of seconds until 212 is reached. In this case, in our case, yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So Vlad, let's just go back to you putting in another coffee, and you've never roasted this coffee before.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, my recommendation, and I do this with everyone every single day, my recommendation is, because you don't know where that coffee is going to crack.
Exactly.
So my recommendation is do what I've done here right now. I've gone to the level and I've put the level on the highest level possible. So on the front of my Kaffelogic, I just go and I load it in at 2. I then go 5.9. What I've done is I've given myself a bit of breathing room. I've given myself a bit of space so that if it does end if it does go over that 207 degrees, well, then it's not going to shut off. I'm not going to waste a batch of coffee.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
So I let it go until it gets first crack. But obviously now first crack here, well, the last part of the roast will only take me to 217 degrees. Can you see that?
Yes.
You know, so if I'm cracking at 220 degrees, I've got a problem. It's going to stop. It's going to stop anyway. But let's say, for example, it cracks at 212 degrees, like you said. Okay, I can stop it manually. Okay, or it will crack, and then I can log first crack on my roaster, and then I will then stop it at 10 degrees. Okay, and that then if this makes sense to you now, you can see I'm bringing that level down, but you can see I'm looking at, on the right-hand side, I'm looking at my percentage there, and the new level it will show you when you end at 10 degrees, the new level it will show you is not 2 anymore, it's now 5.3.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Now what I can do with
this
that,
is
yeah.
it's very, very cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
now what
then
I can do with
for the
is,
next roast, I can program the expected first crack temperature, and then everything will go smooth.
yeah. Or what I would do in your case here with this coffee is I would just save it, and I would save the new profile now. I would save it now as 212. That's what I would save it as, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
There are two people who have additional questions, which is Damir and Dimitri. And I think maybe something to understand is that we've been talking now about the situation of a person that's a coffee roaster and uses the machine for cuppings. So there isn't necessarily the need to start with the cupping profile. I think this was your question, Dimitri. Do you want to switch in?
Yeah, please.
Yeah, thank you. Hi, Wayne. So,
hey, Dimitri.
Well, so the question about the temperature. So, as it's obviously very, very important at which point you end your roast, could you give us some estimates? So, how does the temperature probe depend on the weight of the batch? So let's say if I'm roasting 80 grams, or if I'm roasting 120 grams, would the temperature probe would it be more precise or less precise? Or so can you say anything about it? Because in the manual you wrote, so it could be that the real temperature would be 5 to 10 degrees lower than the temperature probe. So does it change with the weight of the batch?
It doesn't change. It just becomes more accurate with the batch. So the higher the batch is, the more accurate it becomes.
All right.
Okay. Now the reason why it becomes more accurate is because you have more bean mass, and the greater bean mass sits closer to the probe. Okay.
Right.
There's one more thing that can make our mass of coffee, lower masses of coffee, so 80 grams. I mean, there might be some of you here that are roasting on Kaffelogic that will try roasting 80 grams of a specific coffee, and the Kaffelogic will always show you a heat too fast, a heat too fast, a heat too fast. But then you'll put in 80 grams of another coffee, I don't know, a fresh Panama or something like that, and you'll roast 80 grams absolutely perfectly. So there's another part to this whole system around, and I'll address accuracy first. The more the bean mass tumbles through the column that is closest to the probe. So the more it tumbles closest to the probe, the more accurate the temperature will be.
Right.
Okay.
So do I need
to change
the, sorry.
Yep. No, please.
Do I need to change the roast level then if I'm roasting 100 grams and so let's say I'm expecting 217 degrees to so the roasting will be finished, and I'm roasting 100 grams, and then I'm trying to roast let's say 120 grams, and then you'll say, well, 270 degrees will be more likely 216 degrees because the probe is more accurate. So do I need to change the roast level if I'm roasting more or less beans?
Look, Dimitri, in all honesty, you can change the level. You can change the level down by a degree or 2 degrees between your 100 and your 120 gram batch. Okay, you can. I find that when you're roasting 100 and 120 degree, when you're roasting 100 or 120 degree gram batches, I find that if you want to roast your coffee to 216 degrees at 120 grams, and if you want to roast the same coffee at 100 grams and you want to roast it at 216 degrees, there's very little taste difference between the two. That's right. My experience through it. And you might pick up a different experience if it is a different experience. And you're finding that your coffee that you're roasting at 100 grams has got a little bit roastiness flavor to it. It's picked up a bit of roastiness flavor to it, and you want to bring that down. My recommendation would always be to drop it down by 2 degrees. So to drop your end level down by 2 degrees, take that 217 and make it 215 degrees. Right. There's another thing that we have to do in that is we have to look at fan speed and in particular the fan profile. We have to look at fan profile as well. If we're dropping from 120 gram roast to 100 gram roast, we have to also change our fan, because now we have a disproportionate amount of air blowing through our coffee as well. And if we have 100 grams with the same amount of air that's blowing 120 grams through, that would be different as well. So the same equation has to apply to your fan profile and your fan profile before your temperature. So I would say drop your fan profile, your entire fan profile, by about, my rule of thumb is 100 to 150 RPM at a time. That's my rule of thumb. I drop the entire profile by 150 RPM. And then I roast to exactly the same end temperature. And then I assess from a flavor perspective. Right. I find that you get a lot closer. I find if you get a lot closer if you drop your fan than if you drop your temperature. And that's fan profile and not anything else. Just playing with your RPM with that. Your conversion tool, if you go to tools and you go to transform profile and you're actually on your fan profile curve and you go tools and transform profile, you're then able to actually move your entire profile down, up by RPM, or even stretch it or decrease it by time. Yeah, so it's a nice tool to use for that.
All right, thank you.
Regarding to this question, if I have a roast and so it's I started the roast and I see that actually the beans are not moving. I want to change the fan higher. How do I do it while it's roasting? So I must change to the manual mode to bring the RPMs up and then to change back to the automatic mode. How do I do it?
How do you do it? It's very simple. Your profile and your manual, but your profile and your menu button on the roaster. So that'll be your fifth and your fifth button from the left-hand side.
Yeah.
Your fifth and your second last and your last button from the left-hand side. We all know the profile. The profiles button is the one that you select your profile, and the menu button is the one next to it to the right.
Yeah. So I press
so if you press those once together, if you press them once together, you'll go into manual mode.
Okay, and then I can adjust in the manual mode heating or fan. So I choose fan,
which is the plus button. Yep.
I go up and then I can switch back to the automatic mode, or what's happening after that?
Vlad, to be honest with you, I've never actually attempted it. To be honest with you, I've never attempted it. So it's quite interesting. I'd love to try it. What you should be able to do is you should simply be able to. So now you've adjusted your fan profile. What you should be able to do is you should be able to press your profile in your menu button again, and it will take you back to the main screen.
Yeah. The question is, when I go back to the main screen, the new RPMs will be kept, and the whole curve will be adjusted or not, or what's
I actually don't know. It's a great
situation.
It's an amazing question.
I had practically the situation where and I did not stop the roast.
It's an amazing question.
Not enough air, and I did not know what to do. Okay.
Yeah, I'm sorry I can't answer it. I've never actually physically attempted that, but I will try it tomorrow morning.
It's okay. Yeah.
So I'll see. I'll either send you a picture doing this, or I'll send you a picture with a roaster in flames. How's that? Okay. No, thank you for the question. I really appreciate it. Yeah, thank you.
So you can give me a feedback, and I send it to. I have Flat's contact. I could send it to him. Yeah. And there is also Damir. First of all, he was asking if he wants to start. Does he need to start with the cupping profiles, or should he start with a darker one, like an espresso profile?
Yeah.
And also, when it comes to Robusta, shall he always go with the Robusta profile or altitude profiles?
Yeah. So obviously, I mean, if you want to drink espresso coffee, and you know you don't like to typically drink very light coffees, you like to drink coffees that are maybe a little bit on the medium high roast levels. These are coffees that are pushing into typically like 26, 27, 28% development, even as high as that. I drink coffees sometimes like that are about 20% development, but then I'm running a really, really, really fast, intense profile, really high pitched profile. So let's say you enjoy those coffees. There really is no reason for you to start on the cupping profile, unless you're looking to particularly pick up what the base level of those coffees are. Then I would recommend cupping. If you're not bothered about that, if you're not worried about that, if you just want to see what it's going to do for you in espresso, I would suggest then just starting with an espresso profile, if that makes sense. Now, what profile to start with? That's the more relevant question. What profile to start with is like saying, how long is a piece of string? You're going to have to roast on something, and you're going to then have to go, does this something work for me, or does this something not work for me? Okay, and that's really why we develop the core profiles. We developed the core profiles, both RTD and REST, because we just wanted to give users something to start from. They're not all 100% correct to 100% people, but it's a good starting point. You can take that profile, roast it, taste it, and go, this is not dark enough for me. This is not intense enough for me. I want a little bit more roasty flavor. I want a little bit more caramel. I want a little bit more intensity. What do I need to do from there on? The dark roast profile is the furthest, most extreme version of that, if that makes sense. Okay, so if you want to go balls to the walls, if you like things that are quite charry, quite intense, quite very roasty, I would definitely go towards the dark. I would start with the dark roast profile, but there's not so much you can do further from that. The dark roast profile's final point ends at like 239 degrees. So it ends at the maximum roasting capacity of the Kaffelogic. The Kaffelogic can only roast 241 degrees. So there's really no more you can go on that way. The only thing you can go is more intense, or dropping the profile down to try and find the flavor that works for you. So that'll be pitching the profile more intense, or flattening out the profile to work something out from a taste perspective. If you want to start from that, start from that. My advice to you would be start with the Kaffelogic classic profile. Start with that. Pull your way across that profile. So take 3 to 4 roasts. Start at a level like at a 4, for example. Start at a 4. Now, remember, this is if you really like those deep, intense, real roasty type of coffees, that high roasted coffee. Okay, if you're starting at a 4, for example, you will quickly find 3.7 and you will quickly find 4.3 or 4.4, somewhere in between there. You will enjoy the coffee in between there. And that's where you will start to play with. It's not your end point, it's just a starting point. So that's the key for me, is where to start. You can start on one of the core profiles as well. Find the core profile that matches your particular coffee from an altitude perspective. Push it up into that band of 4 plus. So get somewhere around about that 226, 227 degree end point, and then start your development from there. Yeah, no one profile is the perfect profile for your coffee, and we only get to those perfect profiles for your coffee from starting from a specific point, if that makes sense. I can't really, no one can tell you where to start from. I could give you a profile, you could roast it, you could go, this is my coffee tastes terrible. But I've given you a cupping profile that I enjoy drinking filter coffee on, and you enjoy drinking very intense espresso-based coffees. So my starting point would always be one of the core profiles in the level 4s, or the classic profile, the Kaffelogic classic profile in the level 4s. That would be my recommendation. And if you know what you want and you really want to go far and deep into it, the real dark roasted profile at those high levels will do it. It should do it for you. Yeah. On Robusta, you can use the Robusta profile. When I made it, I did 5 different types of Robusta. 5 different origins of Robusta. That's how I got to that profile. I really enjoy clean. When I say really, I don't drink enough of it, but in the past, I've done a lot of work with commercial roasting. I've done a lot of work with very clean Robustas. So I have a little bit of a taste for that. The more muddy, the more intense the Robusta gets, the lower grade the Robusta is. I typically don't like to drink that. So my 6 Robustas from 6 origins were quite clean. That Robusta profile is, again, a good starting profile. Nothing stops you. Decaf is another option. Nothing stops you from taking Robusta, looking at its altitude, applying it to an altitude profile and roasting it. Nothing stops you from taking Robusta and taking one of Vlad's profiles that he gives you, and applying it to Vlad's profile and seeing what it does, seeing how it reacts. It's all about the reaction. It's all about the taste comparison. And then what do I actually want to get out of this? So the Robusta profile was created just to help people out with identifying Robusta. It's not the perfect profile for Robusta. Please don't feel that. And exactly the same for decaf. A lot of people say to me, but I'm roasting on the decaf profile, and I find that I just can't get the best out of it. And I go, well, why don't you try an altitude profile? Why don't you just try, or let me know what it cracks at, and I'll send you a profile, because you like it real, you like a real light, soft roast that you want to apply to it. You like drinking it as filter, for example. Well, I definitely wouldn't look at some of the core profiles for that, because they are focused towards espresso. I would look at these new profiles that we're creating now.
One question about the rate of rise curve.
Yep.
So, I mean, let's say I chose a profile curve, and I'm aiming to and you see in the logs quite a lot of wiggling in the rate of rise curve, and you can attempt to reduce this wiggling as you described it in the manual, by corners, by zones. So how far would you go with this? So what is realistically possible in approaching this so the attempted or targeted rate of rise curve? So would you go as far as to say I'm only satisfied if I see no difference between the actual rate of rise curve and the targeted rate of rise curve? Or would you say, so doesn't matter if I see a little bit of wiggling, so it's okay, it's fine?
I've brought up a log here because this is probably to your point, this is probably one of those real wiggle ugly logs, if you think about it. And that's that rate of rise, that's not nice. Now all that tells me, quite honestly, all that it tells me, and there's other things we can look at as well, Dimitri. We can look at things like voltage, and we can look at our power curve. Okay. Right. Now, all that tells me is that our coffee is not responding how we want it to respond to the profile. So the coffee is fighting us through the profile. Okay. There's various things I could do. So to answer your question, how far would you go until you kind of go, well, I'm not going to get any joy out of that. Okay. That depends on, it depends on what you're actually looking for. And I'll be a little bit more specific about that. What happens if I roasted this profile and I got this log out of the coffee, and it's a coffee that's coffee that I know, coffee that I've had before, or a coffee that someone's just given to me and described to me, and I've roasted this log and it's a real amazing, enjoyable cup. So it tastes exceptional. It tastes really, really, really good. But I look at that log and I go, but that log is just that ROR curve is terrible. You know, how right, yeah. I'm almost going, where do I start first? Do I start with taste first, or do I start with log first? Okay. All right. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to start to play with that profile. I'm going to start to tweak that profile, start to possibly bring that profile down slightly, soften that profile so I can get my ROR curve running really beautiful and nicely through that expected ROR. Because remember, this is just an expected, it's a plotted ROR. Okay. Yeah. So I'm going to try and smooth that out. But what I do now is I actually start to get a detriment in taste in my coffee. My coffee starts to change flavor, and I start to roast it differently to how I really enjoyed it in the beginning, because I'm looking at information, and I'm looking at a lot of information in one time. Now that's more a relevant question. Where do I draw the line with that? Okay, now I've worked with Kaffelogic users that would send me that, and I would say, how did the coffee taste? And they would go, no, I threw the coffee away because I looked at the log. And I go, well, you right. can't throw the coffee away. You've actually got to taste it. You've got to taste it. Okay, now that's not answering your question, how far would I go? Okay, I would do as little manipulation to it as possible. All right, so when I use corners, when I use boosts, all right, I have to ask myself the question, why are you using a corner? Why are you using a boost? If I've manipulated the profile and I'm not getting a better flow, a better, more stable ROR line on this curve, okay? If I'm not getting it to follow a lot better and to look a lot better, okay, then I can go in to put in a boost zone to try and rectify that. But if I've got two boost zones in, some of them overlapping, and I've still got my ROR that's not touching perfectly, well, then maybe I've done too much to the profile, if that makes sense. Maybe it's just not the right profile for my coffee.
Right.
And that's a relevant question. Maybe it's just not the right profile for my coffee.
Okay. So you wouldn't be too much too obsessed with approaching the rate of rise curve. So I mean, maybe my question was, is it built in as a property of the Kaffelogic that you cannot avoid this wiggling? I mean, I can do as much as boosting and corners, but if I'm still seeing wiggling, so is a kind of built-in feature or bug of the Kaffelogic, so I cannot overcome this? So, or do I just don't need to worry too much about this? I think you answered this already. So
yeah, I'm not.
Don't worry.
I just want to be clear. I'm definitely not saying don't worry about it. I'm definitely not saying don't worry about it, because I believe you should worry about it, but worry about it to a point. Right. That's what I'm saying. Worry about it to a point where you're now actually obsessing over it, if that makes sense.
Yes.
Because that's what we do. We're looking at a lot of information. We got to remember with the Kaffelogic is a naked probe, as you all know. That naked probe has got a lot of information coming into it. All right. And that information that's coming into it needs to be deciphered, and the computer program is trying to decipher it as much as possible. Now, if we look at a 1.5 millimeter thick probe, or we look at a 3 millimeter or 6 millimeter probe, that ROR curve would be super smooth and just super beautiful. So there has to be a bit of fluctuation. I look at this log that I've put in front here now, and I look at it, and there's certain things I don't like about it. I definitely don't like this. Definitely don't like that. That's crummy. Okay, that's going to change flavor. All right, but this part here, do I really have an issue with this part here? Like fundamentally, do I have an issue with it? I've got more of an issue with this than I do with this. So I have to almost pick my battles. Now, I bring up this log, and I've put here a really good roast, because taste-wise, it tasted exceptional. There was a bit of flattening at the end, so I could fix this, okay? But this was like the 5th or 6th attempt that I did on this profile. So it's the 5th or 6th attempt, and look at the zones that I've got in here. I've got big zones in here, so I'm really trying to push a square peg through a round hole. And what I did was I got the best that I could possibly get for it. I still had coffee left over, and I just switched to another profile.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Okay, so where do you chase that rabbit hole? You know, chase that profile to go. It has to be perfect. It has to be perfect. At some point, your coffee is just going to react slightly different to it, and the information coming out. I could roast that tomorrow, and the ROR line could look absolutely perfect on the same coffee. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm trying to say? So I guess what I'm saying to you is taste it, assess it, make the changes. If these zones are making changes and they're helping and they're assisting, then keep them and work with that. But at what point do you have to go, I'm just not winning with this?
All right. Thank you.
Yeah.
A question regarding the ROR. Would it be possible to have a ROR scale on the right-hand side, a vertical, to see what is the ROR, a specific scale for the ROR? Because here, if I look at your graph here, but it would be much nicer to see it on the right-hand side as a separate scale, vertical scale, because I don't know at this moment what is your multiplier and everything. So it's much nicer. Yeah, it's helpful for me, for example, because I did not took your profile and use that. I use them to adjust to create my own profiles, and then I want to see the ROR exactly what it is. Yeah, got you.
Let me
just take it with you, and if it's possible, it would be very helpful, I think.
Of course. Let me make a note of that.
Yeah.
When you approach your roasts, what would you recommend? Kind of a step-by-step guide in how to find your perfect roast. You know, there is somebody who has got a coffee. There are some roast profiles on the machines. There are some roast levels we could choose. Then there are some steps or things we can change in the software. And in the software, there is just really a lot to change. And you've been talking before about the airflow, the fan profile, the roast profile. So what would be your recommendation when I get a coffee and I want to roast it perfectly? What are kind of the first, the second, the third step in order to approach to a perfect profile for my coffee?
Yeah, that's absolutely perfect. So the first thing that I would do is I would pick a starting point. So the starting point I would pick is a specific profile. If you don't have a profile that you're currently using, what I would do is I would say pick the profile that suits your coffee. All right. So if it's a core profile, try the core profile. If it's a profile that you've got off a forum, or you've got off Discord, or you've got off one of the groups because you've reached out and someone said, I use this profile, try this profile. And you go, but it's a different coffee. And they go, just try it. and you go, that's my starting point. The starting point with the profile, just to put a profile on Kaffelogic Studio, is the first part. The second part, Ingo, would be then to look at certain things. Now, settings, as far as, sorry, I'm just going to take this difficult, I'm just going to go back to basic settings on Kaffelogic Studio. Basic settings on Kaffelogic Studio allows me to do two things. It allows me to change your preheat power and your minimum desired rate of rise. I've loaded this profile in, and this profile has given me a recommendation of 700 for my my preheat power. Okay, so I go to that recommendation. I always do this. I always try and minimize my workflow as much as possible. I always try and give the roaster the opportunity to achieve what you want it to achieve. Okay, so what I've done here is I've said, I've loaded this profile, and I've now actually gone and I've said, you know what, I'm going to go back to your default. I'm going to listen to you and what you recommend. Okay, I'm removing anything that I can possibly have in the way. Okay, I would do exactly the same thing if there were any zones. I would remove the zones. Okay, but let's say I've got the profile, it's got some zones in it, doesn't matter. Okay, what I would then do is I would then look at a recommended end temperature. All right, now, I don't know, I've never roasted this coffee before. It's the first time I'm roasting it. My friend's given me this profile, and I've said to him, okay, I can see on the right-hand side, his coffee is cracking, or her coffee is cracking at 209, and it's 10%. Let's make that slightly lower. Sorry. There we go. Okay, 14%. There we go. That's her coffee or his coffee cracking. Okay, I know through a little bit of reading, I know that 14% is nice for filter, and I want to drink this as a filter. Okay, so I now make the decision: should I keep that level at that 214 degrees in temperature, or should I move that level up? What I would do, exactly what I said to Vlad. Okay, what I would do, okay, is I would do a complete manual, first port of call, a complete manual end on my roast. Okay, I would do a manual end on my roast because, again, I don't know where this coffee is going to crack. I don't know what it's going to do. I don't know how it's going to react. Okay, so I would go, no problem. I load this profile into my roaster. I then take this level on the front of my roaster and I make this level 5.9, which is the maximum that I can give it. Okay, I then start my roasting process. I'm watching these numbers on the screen, and it really doesn't make sense to me. It doesn't need to make sense to me. And I get to that stage of first crack. And what I do at first crack is I log my first crack. Right, now logging my first crack, doesn't matter where you log it, logging my first crack on the Kaffelogic will then flip the screen around and will give me my development time ratio. And the information leading through development time ratio. Okay, now all I'm going to do there is I'm going to put a peg in the ground and say, do I want to finish at 14%? Do I want to finish, not at 14%, but do I want to finish at, 2.6? Do I want to finish at 1 minute post first crack, or do I want to finish at 8 degrees plus my first crack temperature? Okay. And that parameter that I choose, that's the parameter that I end my roast at. So I will get to 15%, and I will at 14.9%, I will go middle button minus, and it will now give me a new level of 3.1 on the top, on the front of the screen, and it will give a log with that type of information in it. That would be my starting point, Ingo. That's what I would do. I would then wait for it to cool down, pull the USB out, put the log in, look at the log, and then either, wait a couple of hours and taste that filter coffee and then gauge what I want to do from there. That would be my workflow. That would be the start of starting every single roast that I don't know what coffee I'm actually doing. Yeah. Now, profile-wise, Ingo, I can't tell you what profile to use because I don't know how you like to drink your coffee. And I could say use the Kaffelogic Classic profile, but that wouldn't actually be correct to say use the Kaffelogic Classic profile, because you've got to use a profile that's fit for purpose. So I would say, you know, if you are drinking espresso, use one of the rest profiles. If you are drinking RTD, or sorry, if you are drinking filter, start with one of the RTD profiles. Start at a specific point. That's if you don't belong to any forums or any. That's the beautiful thing about forums. The beautiful thing about the Discord channel is amazing with that, because you can say to someone, hey, listen, I enjoy filter coffee, and there's 5 people that will go, hey, why don't you try this profile? You know, so now you've got 5 options as your first port of call to your workflow. But that would be my workflow. Just to get onto that way of stopping, the manual stopping of Kaffelogic profiles or Kaffelogic roasting. I hope everyone's familiar with stopping manually with Kaffelogic. And if you're not familiar with stopping manually with Kaffelogic, if you're roasting on your Kaffelogic and you press the middle button, which is your start button, your triangle button, if you press that button, the screen will automatically say to you, do you want to manually stop? And if you do, press the minus key. And if you press the minus key, which is your first key to the left-hand side, the roaster will automatically stop and it will go into a cool down phase. What it will do, more importantly, is it will take this level that you see at the bottom of your screen, and it will reference that level to the closest end temperature. Okay, and it will give you that on the front of the screen as a new level. So it's telling you, you told me I should roast this profile. You've now told me that you wanted me to stop, and I've stopped. I've literally stopped in the middle of the road, and I won't go any further until you tell me to go. But if you want to do the same route again, I will stop at exactly the same point that you want me to stop again. We use this for cupping with professional roasters, with professional roasting businesses. We use this for cupping, where we'll take 5 or 6 different Kenyans, for example, or 5 or 6 different Ethiopians, or 5 or 6 different Colombians, and we'll do a test profile. So we'll find where the coffee cracks, and then what we'll do is we'll run that same profile with all 5 of those coffees. We'll run that exact same profile at that exact same level. After we've done that test calibration roast, we'll run that same profile with the same level that ended after that first one, and we'll get 6 logs basically. And that's how Kaffelogic can maintain its consistency. If you tell it you want it to be roasted at that level, it will roast at that level. And it will do it as consistent as your coffee will allow it to. Remember, your coffee is the reactor behind this. Kaffelogic will always try and push it onto the straight and narrow as much as possible, but your coffee will react positively and negatively to it. Yeah.
There was a question about the link for the Discord group. Does any of you has got the link to the Discord group? Otherwise, I will find it and send it to you after the session. And then I heard Vlad had a question.
Yes, I have a question. Wayne, after you press, you confirm the first crack point.
Yes.
The display on the Nano changes, showing you the elapsed time, development time, and
yes,
the delta temperature since the first crack.
Yes.
Which is very cool, a very useful data. However, I saw that if I change to another screen to see something else, and then I cannot return to exactly this display, which I miss very much. I return to the standard display where I see the RPMs and the heating power.
Yes. Yeah, and you want to get upset. You want to take the roaster.
I want to go back to my after the first crack to see elapsed time and delta temperature.
Yeah. So all you do,
is this a shortcut or what's?
Yeah, all you do, Vlad. So now you're looking at something else. All you do is you press your profile button.
Yeah.
profile button, it will take you back to that screen.
Okay.
You just anytime you're in any menu, you're looking at anything, you just press the profile button, which is your fourth button from the left-hand side.
Yeah.
You press your profile button, you'll return to the main roasting screen. Yeah.
But the main roasting screen, until I confirm the first crack, is one screen, and after confirming, it's another screen. So I will return to this another screen.
Yes, you'll turn to the another screen.
Maybe as a suggestion, it will be nice to make like on a piece of paper all these kind of shortcuts, because they are maybe spread everywhere in the documentation or on Discord or wherever, and to have them all together.
As far as I know, and look, I'll double check this for you. Absolutely, as far as I know, they are all in the manual.
I did not find them. They are spread everywhere, and
but they are spread in different locations. So I think what will be good and what will be nice is to put together a quick start document that has a short link to it. So these are the most commonly used, most commonly asked questions around navigation. Like, for example, I don't know if everyone knows that you can move your first crack. So if you log first crack, you can actually go and relog first crack. You can move your first crack. See, that's one of those little hidden things in the manual. It's not clear in the manual. So it's clear how to log first crack, but it's not clear how to move first crack. So that's something that we probably will do a better job on, just trying to get better clarity on that type of stuff. Yeah, thank you. Thanks for that. Yeah.
I have another point, the last one, regarding the heating, how do you preheat power, it's called. The very first on the left-hand side when you start the roast. Why must we as a users, as roasters, input manually the preheat power? My suggestion, my idea is, if I input the type of the beans, high density, low density, medium density, if I input the batch, 100 grams, 80 grams, 120 grams, the Nano is measuring automatically the surrounding, the outside temperature. So, and from these three parameters plus my profile, it can calculate and select automatically the preheat power, and I have no interaction with this. I have interaction with things which are, which I can control, which I understand, like which coffee, how much.
Yeah, absolutely. How are you inputting? How are you measuring your density of your coffee?
I'm not measuring. I know that I roast a Brazilian with 800 meter or an Ethiopia with 1900 meter, which is written on the beans package which I buy.
Yeah, but what happens if your Ethiopian grown at 1800 meters is 2 years old?
I cannot answer you this, but So in my case, it's not 2 years old, but yes,
no,
of course,
your
point. I understand your point. I hope you understand.
I'm just playing devil's advocate. Yeah.
Look, Wayne, I compare with my experience, which I did on Ikava.
Yeah, sure.
Ikava, I don't have to deal with such. I just start.
Sure.
So, and it was an idea, from the programming engineering point of view, it can be automized. The user,
I completely agree with you.
He understands, how many grams.
Yeah. I think getting to maybe the next point, or one of the next points, which is around Boost and how Boost will work. With Boost, Vlad, we're bridging that gap. We're getting closer to that. Why we haven't done it before was because there were just too many unknowns that the user would have to input, and we wanted to make it simple for the user. Okay. so we've always relied on Kaffelogic to give us a recommendation, and we've allowed the user, because we don't know what coffee he's putting in. He doesn't know what coffee, or she doesn't know what coffee she's putting in. You know, you look at a bag that tells you altitude, but when I get a coffee from my local roaster, they don't tell me. But I have a roaster that can roast coffee. So we relied on the profile on the operating system saying to us, we recommend that you use that, but you can override that system in any way to do that. Okay. Because if I load that profile, but I change my coffee and I don't tell the unit that I've changed my coffee, I would now have too much power, you know, because where does it now, you know, what does it do? So that was the rationale in the beginning. That was when Kaffelogic was launched, because it wasn't a point that users used to play with. There were very few users that used to play with preheat power. Now a lot more users play with preheat power, Vlad, and even with boost. That's where boost is so critical for us, because when we start to look at boost and we start to look at what we need to factor, what we need to fix to get to boost batches going, one of them is preheat. And now I can't expect you to put in preheat and to put in this and to put in that. I can't expect you to put in 5 or 6 different things. Well, then their workflow is way too big. So we will start to automate a lot of those processes. Yeah. That quite rightly what you say, all that you need to do is you need to say, what batch am I doing and what my coffee is. You know what I'm trying to say, and that will align. That will align.
It's a very nice experience to make this and not to get into too much technical things. Yeah,
I completely and utterly agree with you. But that's the beauty, my beauty of assisting with the roasters, because I like technical things, and I like giving you the option to play with those technical things.
I understand your point.
Yeah. Yeah.
Unfortunately, at this point, I need to cut the video. The next question was about innovations the Kaffelogic team is working on, and Wayne was very open and transparent about the projects, about the things they're currently working on. I hope you understand that this is something that we can talk about in a closed group, like a webinar, but this is not something that I can publish on YouTube. So if you're interested in this kind of information, or anyhow, if you're interested in asking people like Wayne questions, then have a look at our webinar page on our website. We will do more sessions with Wayne, but other people in the coffee industry as well. I look forward to meeting you there. And just coming back to the innovations the Kaffelogic team is working on, all I can tell you is, and this is something that I really love about the philosophy of this company, these innovations that will come in the future are adaptable on your machine no matter when you bought it. So it doesn't matter if you bought a machine a year ago, if you're buying it now, if you're buying it in a couple of weeks or months. You will always have the possibility to upgrade your machine within the life cycle. So you have a machine for the future, just like the boost kit that is coming within the next couple of weeks that can just be mounted on any machine. So you can really be excited. Your Kaffelogic machine, if you have got one, will be even a better machine in the future. That said, I hope this video was helpful for you. If you want to know more about the Kaffelogic machine or any other roasters, you find information on my website. You can contact me. You also find information on our website on upcoming webinars and sessions with other roasters, with other coffee professionals. And I hope to see you soon, online or offline. If you have any questions, always come back to me. You find my contact on roastrebels.com.